sir, people. I'm so glad to have to talk with you today. You know it, Paperless Movement. What is it? It's a big movement, an international movement about the story of each another, of everybody in the world, because we are all like a unique book that deserves to be known. And as you know, also, I challenge myself to have a discussion with one person of each country in the world. And it's funny because today we have somebody from Canada, and I'm from Canada too, from Quebec, but I never talked to somebody from another province yet. So it's the first time today. We are also going to talk a little bit about USA as he's living there. So I'm very glad to present to you, Keith. How are you, my friend?
I'm awesome. Glad to be here.
Thank you for being here. Actually, as I always say, thank you for your time. It's precious and never come back. So thank you for that. I really appreciate.
My pleasure.
To begin with, so we can know much about you, I really love that question. I think it's the best question to oversee like what's going to come in the discussion. Because I always say, like I said in the introduction, we are all unique book that deserve to be known. So if your life was a book, what would be the title and why?
Oh wow, that's a.
That's my people's
um,
signature
I
question.
think I'd title it a single word: evolution.
Evolution.
Yeah, because I think that's the reason why we pop into existence in the first place is to evolve, to grow, and hopefully reach our maximum potential.
Wow, I love it. Actually, I'm so I agree with you so much. I always say the same. I think we are here just to evolve and to get our kids to evolve and become better than us, and then be the better and better. So yeah, makes sense.
Hmm.
And we said I said it in the beginning. You're from Canada. You live in USA. What does defines you as a human being?
Well, that's a complex one too. We could go down, write another whole book about that. Um, well, as I uh, mentioned when we talked before coming on the show, is I was born in Windsor, Ontario.
Yeah.
However, my family immigrated to the United States and when I was 14. Um, so it was a big paradigm shift for me. Uh, to answer the question, what defines me is a solid foundation of the culture and values of certainly Canada, having grown up a good portion of my youth there. But then also the experiences along the way that includes the immigration to the U.S. and life transitions throughout life.
Yeah, okay. And was it difficult for you, like when you were a teenager? Was it something you can say that it was an obstacle for you to overcome?
It was like moving to another planet. The culture was
Okay.
quite different. It was in
Yeah.
1968. There was a lot of societal tensions, the Vietnam War and conflict about that, the racial relations. Uh, Plus, the culture was quite different in the South of the United States. So it was fairly traumatic
And how did you overcome all of
as a
that?
young teen. Well, it took a number of years. I think a couple of things haunted me, um, throughout my late adolescence and early adulthood. One is feeling like a little bit like a stranger in a strange land because it was so different, and then being a introvert and not knowing I was one until
Oh,
much later in life. Um, just felt out of place, and people would notice that you didn't have a southern drawl or accent, um, and they'd ask you where you were from, and when I'd say on Ontario, Canada, you often get off the wall questions like, "Well, what state is that in?" So it was a clue of how limited people's understanding of geography was, let alone that there were, maybe cultural differences, value differences.
Okay, okay, that's interesting. That's funny because I can do a little parallel with myself.
Mhm,
I stayed in Canada, but when I went in Nova Scotia and Ontario, me as a Quebecer, it was kind of a cultural change, and I had to live with that, and I was feeling stranger at the beginning, and
mhm,
then at the end, just like by being with those people and just you finish by understand that everybody is human being actually, and we just have maybe different culture, different thinking, but still we want love, we want to have fun,
mhm.
to have a purpose in life, and that's it.
Yeah. So I guess the biggest shocker for me was I guess being introduced for the first time to prejudicial mindsets because growing up in Canada, I didn't think anything about um, people of a different skin color or whatever, and I just was kind of shocked by the
Yeah,
judgments and it's modified somewhat over the years in the United States, but it's still there as a kind of an archetypal issue.
it is still, it is still
Yeah.
like that, or
Yeah, it's some of it's softened. It's not as overt, but it's still there. Yeah.
okay,
Mm.
that's not talking about evolution right there.
Yeah, as humans, we tend to evolve very slowly. Technology evolves much
Yeah,
quicker. It would have been considered science fiction just 20 years ago that we be talking
yeah.
over this magical internet and have video conferencing and all the tools and technology we have, but our social systems and mindsets are much slower to evolve in my observation.
Hmm. That's interesting. We're gonna talk a little bit about the difference from
Mm.
between Canada and USA a little bit later. Uh, would you have a message of hope for teenagers that would live the same situation as you, like being immigrated to another country or another province or something like that?
um, well, one thing that has served me, and I didn't maybe recognize it, it was a asset until maybe in my mid to late 20s, and that is to be tenacious. And then,
Okay.
more importantly, when I did discover that I was a introvert, probably around 30 or my early 30s, when I
Okay.
was introduced to Myers Briggs temperament types, and it explained a lot. There's a reason why I wasn't comfortable in large crowds, busy, noisy places,
Okay.
because I was an introvert. And there was no need to change me. It doesn't matter where we are in temperament type assessments, whether we're introvert, extrovert, somewhere in the middle, etc., because it is a continuum. Um, we are served better, we evolve better, we get more potential and fulfillment if we honor who we are, what our core existence is, because it's actually a biological difference, just like the color of
Yeah.
hair, color of eyes,
You
and
don't
so
choose it.
forth. It's
Wow.
way the brain processes. We think and reflect before we speak. That's often perceived as being bashful or shy or aloof, and it's not. We're processing in order to speak, and where extroverts are much more vocal. I kind of characterize them as gumball machines. Thought pops in the head, comes out the mouth. So they think out loud, basically, where we think internally before we respond. And here in the United States, at least, that extroversion temperament type is valued a little bit more than introversion. So when I learned that, it's just who I am, it's part of my core
Yeah.
being, and I'm in good company, because it'll shock a lot of people to know that there's some rather famous and successful introverts: Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Page, Warren Buffett, Richard Branson,
Oh
Elon
yeah.
Musk, Emma Thompson,
Didn't
Meryl
know that.
Streep. The list goes on.
Yeah, you're in good company for sure. And what? Uh, d- how can I say that? Would you say that? you work on your self-confidence to being able to do what you're doing right now, actually?
Absolutely. When I discovered now that it wasn't something to be changed, it was something to be honored, it helped my self confidence greatly. And in fact, the more I, because it's a continuing process, the more I honor that temperament and just my natural preferences and values and being congruent with my core values, which are to learn, to teach, to create, to problem solve, and to serve. Not only do I have greater confidence, but I have greater success as well.
Yeah, that makes sense, actually. And in your opinion, what would be actually being confident?
Uh, I think confidence is defined as first having awareness of your uniqueness as a human being and being true to it, honoring it, and not um, being persuaded or hijacked by self esteem to somehow change to fit in. That, okay, this is who I am, and I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. And that shouldn't be a problem
Yeah,
because there's over or close to 8 billion other humans on the planet.
yeah,
And we're going to have different likes and dislikes, preferences and skills and so forth. And if somebody um, has a negative opinion of who I am and what I do, there's going to be probably just as many or more that will resonate with who I am and appreciate it. So,
yeah. It makes sense, but it's tough path to being able to say that
yeah,
actually
we're
to say
wired to be social. It's actually part of our brain biology to be social. We're social creatures
yeah,
in nature. So, and we're taught from an early age by our cultural systems, starts with family of origin, then school and community, etc., to comply and fit in. Now,
yeah,
we do have to do that to a norm, so I'm not upsetting um, the people around me or behaving where it's unsocial or unlawful. But I don't have to try and adapt to fit somebody else's expectations. One of
so
the
true.
reads that I read in the early 80s when I was going through a lot of uh, change and reflection and some of my growth called "What Other People Think of Me Is None of My Business." It actually what the title of the book was only one chapter in the book. There's a lot of other interesting
Okay.
mindsets and perspective, and that's true because you can really worry and fret and cause a lot of stress and angst and turmoil worrying about what other people think when ultimately it's their perception, it's their reaction. Um, and like most everything in life, things are neutral. We all have individual reactions that can be triggered by outside people or
Yeah,
event, but ultimately it's our choice. Usually it's an unconscious one. We're playing old um, reactions or old behaviors and perceptions that maybe served us in the past, and that's even somewhat questionable, but they don't necessarily serve us in the current moment. And we're all, as humans, walking around somewhat unconscious to how we learn to react from observing how the parents did it, how
yeah,
other um, caretakers or people that were of influence and how they react. And we've learned that, oh, that was a way. It's not
yeah.
always the best way, but it's
No,
a way.
no, exactly. Like, I mean, it's good to look at other people what they're doing if you're trying to do the same thing, but at the end of the day, you need to do your path because we are all
Yeah,
human.
and if you ask a simple question and put some thought into it, is this reaction, this behavior, this choice, whatever I'm choosing, um, serving me and serving others in
Yeah,
the best way possible?
yeah, that's it. And why would be so important for teenagers, actually, for everybody, but mostly for teenagers, to being confident in their development?
Well, they're going through this phase of transitioning from dependence as a child to acquiring the skills and behaviors and mindset and choices that will serve them as an adult. Because we all go through these transitional phases. I'm trying to remember who kind of characterized it as sort of deaths, but the death of a infant to become a toddler, the death of a toddler become a child, the death of a child become adolescent, and then the adolescent become adult,
Yeah, there's a
and
lot
then
of,
even as we get older, it's the we start going through transitions related to aging. I'm
yeah,
not as athletic as I was in my 20s and so forth. So we all go through these transitions, these phases, or deaths, and it's just part of life. And a lot of times we'll be kicking and screaming about the transition in the high chairs, beating our spoons instead of looking for the joy and the opportunity and the benefits of those transitions.
yeah, no, so true. And
So they're
that's it.
often looking for other role models to do that because for most of their life until the teenage years, the influences have been parental or family, and etc. And uh, what are going to be the values that I want to live by,
Mm,
and
yeah,
what I might be seeking for a profession, and so many
that's
layers that they're
hard.
going through. So it can be an awkward and challenging time. I think one of the ways to create some confidence and self-esteem with that to recognize is you're not alone. You're
Yeah,
not the
it's
only
true.
human on the planet that is going through those
No, we all have
angst.
a certain at certain point a lack of confidence.
Yeah.
And actually, what would be how could the teenager overcome that lack of confidence?
Well, with anything, I'll relate it to learning something or a skill, but it's applicable to anything in life that we're feeling a little uncomfortable about or that we don't have confidence with, and that is repetition. I didn't learn how to walk overnight.
So true,
um,
so true.
I had to stand up, fall down, figure out balance. It's a complex task. And not only are you fighting gravity, you're on a planet that's spinning through space at 360,000 miles an hour or something
Wow.
um, crazy. And we don't realize that we're unconsciously adapting to those centrifugal forces and so forth. But we all, for the most part, mastered walking. We mastered potty training. We mastered a lot of things. So a great way to look at confidence is look in the rearview mirror. When in the past have I mastered something? And it's mastered usually through focus and repetition. So
Yeah.
whatever it is that I might feel uneasy about learning to type, you know, as a physical skill or being more social, etc., is to take baby steps, focus on and repeat what we focus and repeat on. We get good at.
Yeah, makes sense. And by doing baby steps, like you said, if you like cut your objective in little objective, every time you got your
Mhm.
objective done, you have more confidence. So yeah, that's a good trick.
Yeah, and celebrate those little wins along
Yeah,
the way.
exactly. Yeah, that's, yeah, so important as well.
The brain science actually shows that when we reward ourselves, we get dopamine hits that motivate us further. We don't want to overdo it
Yeah, of
because
course.
it's actually when those are done more random than
Yeah,
structured, it
yeah.
serves us better.
Well, yeah, so true. Thank you for that. If we come back to yourself a little bit,
Mhm.
as an adult, what was an obstacle you had, and what did you do to overcome it?
Well, there's been lots of obstacles from job losses,
Okay.
along the way with economic transitions. Probably the greatest challenge is I lost both parents, lost a
Oh,
job.
wow.
Somebody ran into or backed into my car, uh, almost totaled it, and the loss of another relative all in 1 year. And we all have a threshold of how much challenge or stress we can take. In scientific terms, it's called allostatic load. How much load can we take
Yeah,
emotionally, physically, spiritually, whatever, um, before something breaks if we don't have support systems or the skill sets to um, move through that. Well, at
yeah.
that particular point in my life, they weren't as well honed. The skills weren't as well honed as they are now at my point in my life. So I essentially had a nervous breakdown, spent 16 days in the hospital,
Oh,
and that experience wasn't an improvement. It actually added more stress. But I had learned enough skills through life to notice no, I need to focus on balancing, taking care of my internal needs, and one step at a time moving
wow.
through that. Because there's a lot of things we don't have control in life. We don't have the control of whether a hurricane comes along, a tornado
Yeah,
comes along. And unfortunately, at least here in the United States, as a culture, um, they don't focus on the resilient skills that will serve us to move through those challenges
oh,
and
really?
how we weather them. Because challenges going to always going to be there
Yeah,
to one degree or another, and the stress is our reaction to it and how we cope with it. And
so
it's
true.
just not addressed like it should, or as it is in other cultures around the planet.
Yeah, exactly. And as you had to deal with all these obstacles, what inspire you the most about you?
Inspires, if did I get the question right? Inspires me the most about me.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry.
um, I think my tenacity and my creativity. That it was kind of stifled a little bit in my early years, but I let it grow and mature. And when we're able to be resilient, stay calm, and relax no matter what occurs in life, because there's an infinite number of responses to whatever occurs, that weather system that I don't have control of, any damage it did, and so forth, or somebody um, backs into my car or whatever. There's an infinite number of responses. One of them is no response.
Yeah.
I can just witness, I can just observe, I can look at, okay, can't control that. It happened. What's my path of least resistance to navigate through it and keep a calm, equitable state? I was fortunate enough in my mid 20s to serendipitously get introduced to yoga, meditation, and mindfulness.
Yeah.
Those
That's
three disciplines have served me tremendously over the years and allowed me to pick up the skills to know how to relax, control my physical and mental states, and not let things I don't have control of trigger me.
mm-hmm. That's a big work on us to do that. But yeah, meditation has started as well a couple of months ago.
Mhm.
And as a stressful person, I can say that it calmed me a lot. It is working. We should the teenagers should do it every day. We should teach that.
Yeah, there's school systems in the United States. There's not a lot of them, but there are
Oh yeah.
some that instead of going to study hall, you have the option to go to meditate for the half hour, hour, whatever the
Oh,
block
that's
of
great.
time is that normally would be a study hall. Here, where I live in Ohio, one of the congressmen in the northeast end of Ohio got $1.2 million of federal funds to teach meditation in the
Wow, that's
public
awesome.
schools. It's one of the most studied ancient sciences on the planet, and there's all kinds of health benefits, over 100, not just um, calming your mind and not getting over reactive to whatever displeases us in life or was an unexpected, but lowers the blood pressure,
Yeah,
rewires your brain, increases your gray matter so you can study and recall better, all kinds
yeah.
of positive benefits.
No, there's a lot actually. That's a good way to be a better person.
Mhm.
And now, what are you getting involved in? What are you doing in your life? What's your life mission actually?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, be congruent with my core values. And as a life mission statement is to evolve and develop my highest potential, which I try to exercise every day. When my feet hit the floor, I'm doing something that increases my knowledge or skills or benefits others. I've got a number of business efforts that I'm pursuing. A recent one is a business portal for small businesses because they're underserved and it's tough to beat with the big brands these days.
Yeah,
So it's a business portal that has 69 tools that are neuroscience based. So, why do brains buy? Why don't they? How to message to them more efficiently. And then paired with AI tools that make it very efficient and extremely low cost to generate however you're going to message through social media and all the different venues that we have available to us these days. So, that allows me to serve others, create solutions that make their
wow.
business efforts easier and low at a lower cost. But in more importantly, it's an outlet for my creativity. As I well, what if I could do that? It'd be interesting instead of having a traditional ad. Is what if it was turned into a poem? So there's one of the tools where you can choose the poet you want, Robert
Oh,
Frost, and put in your product or service how many stanzas you want, and it'll create a poem as an ad for social media, and that's going to
that's
stand out
awesome.
a little bit more you know, readily than I'm selling this, buy it, that you see way too much of these days.
Yeah, and what would you say to people that would be actually interesting in what you're doing?
Well, check it out. And it's worth exploring because we're going through a very um, our time of very rapid change
Yeah,
and shift in technology, and there will be types of work that won't necessarily be replaced by AI, but
kind
people
of.
that use AI will be replacing the people that don't. So, you know,
Okay.
as a young person, is pay attention to technological changes that are occurring because those are going to be new opportunities.
Yeah,
Uh,
for sure. So you have to know how to use it. Actually, that's what you're saying.
well, I make it easy
Yeah.
because you can just fill in or choose some options like,
Hmm.
okay, I want to serve a particular market sector. This is a description of my product or service, or just put in the link to my website, and the AI will scrape the content and create messaging, video, whatever the heck you want, images based
Yeah,
on what's on the website. So
I will put the link anyway, so for people
yeah.
to know where to go. And where do you see yourself in the future in connection with all you're doing right now?
Um, well, that question gets asked a lot by employers. So young people will face that question: where do you see yourself in
Yeah,
5 years? It's overused, overdone. I don't know, because especially now, technology shifts so much. I don't
yeah,
have any control of economic conditions. So you don't want to answer "I don't know," even though that's the rude answer, but say, I see myself continuing to learn, evolve, add to my skills, and so forth. So if you can portray yourself as a lifelong learner, then you usually will have no trouble with employment.
yeah. No, that's one of the best answer I had for this question.
Yeah.
Actually, let's compare a little bit Canada and USA because you live in both country. I know you lived for 14
Mhm.
years only in Canada. Maybe you can't, maybe don't answer all these questions in for Canada, but let's see. Um, what cultural value do you consider essential for your community in USA and maybe in
I'm
Canada
sorry,
if you have
repeat the
one?
question.
Yeah, yeah,
Repeat
yeah.
the question
Uh,
again.
what what cultural value do you consider essential for your community in your country?
Oh, okay. That one's simple that I picked up in Canada. In contrast to the United States, Canada is much um, more focused on benefiting everyone. So there's a lot of more solidarity, I guess,
Okay.
and like just the difference in healthcare systems. That healthcare should be
Yeah,
there for everyone versus, you know, it's more monetized and um, capitalized, I think, here in the United States. And it wasn't until, just recently that they got a little bit closer toward a universal health system, but nothing like a lot of other industrialized nations have. So
that's
I
funny you're
would say
talking
that,
about that.
yeah. So I think
Yeah,
the
sorry,
solidarity and wanting to um, elevate all its citizens versus just the ones that might have
that may
been
pay.
lucky enough to be born into
Yeah,
family wealth, or
exactly right.
lucked out and made a fortune or whatever.
But that's funny you're talking about that because here in Canada and in Quebec, we're talking about trying to be like in USA. That's funny for health
I don't
services.
recommend it.
Yeah, okay, that's it, huh? Because you live there, you know it. Wow, that's
Now
I
there
did.
are some things that are um, good about the country, but that's the one. Um,
Okay,
there's
wow,
it's a lot more awkward. United States is almost like having 50 separate countries, because each state has its
yeah,
own culture, to a lot of degree, its own laws and everything else, and it's not as united as the title might portray, the United States of
yeah,
America.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and certainly
And
there's going through a lot of polarity and um, conflict with the stratification of wealth that has occurred in the 50s and 60s. There was a much more um, um, level landscape. If you grew up middle class and maybe you didn't want to go to college, you could always get a job in a factory that was well paying, had benefits, and so forth. And over the last 30, definitely 40 years, that has melted away. Wages um, are much tougher to keep up with inflation, for example, and you see all these uber wealthy individuals. The stats are rather staggering. The top 1% here in the United States have 92% of the equity and wealth.
Wow.
Think about that.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it right now. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's
Yeah.
wow, that's
So I
amazing.
see
And
other
consider,
areas around the planet where that's a little bit more equitable, that you don't have the degree of stratification
hmm
in wealth as you hear in the United States. Now that um, shows that there's great potential,
yeah,
but it doesn't serve everyone. And
that's a big
unfortunately,
problem.
right, yeah, unfortunately, there are a few of those individuals that will channel those resources to serve fellow humans and humanity, but a lot of them don't.
Out there. No, and that's the biggest. I think that's one of the biggest problem in the world right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Um.
the way one moves through that is recognize that you can't change those individual behaviors. What's
No.
within my own sphere of influence, I can choose to be more equitable in, you know, my
Exactly.
transactions. And eventually, if enough of that spreads, because as humans, we do have what are called mirror neurons. We will mirror the behavior of the
Yeah.
people we spend the most time with.
So
So,
true.
so you could get ripples moving out
Yeah.
and over time, because that the other part of it is not sustainable.
No, we are as strong as people around us, huh?
Right. So
uh.
my little nudge to that, Jim Rohn, one of the success gurus of the 50s and
Yeah.
60s, said you're the average of the 5 people you spend most time with, and there's science that backs that up. So my nudge is choose wisely.
Exactly. Exactly.
Now,
That's a good
family of
advice.
origin, where there's that layer that we can't do a great deal about. But beyond that, out of those 8 billion people on the planet, we can choose the ones that um, support me, honor me, um, uh, add to my growth and potential rather than stifle it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. What makes you more attached to one of the two country, Canada or USA?
well, primarily physical location. It's where I own a home. My wife, her family and roots are here. We do go back to Canada for vacations and so forth, and exploration. In fact, we were just up in Windsor
Okay.
this summer, late June. We were up in Windsor area. So,
Wow. And what do you love the most in USA, where you live?
well, at least where I'm physically located, the cost of living compared to other areas of the country
Yeah.
are is pretty reasonable. Even people will grumble about the price of things, but often
Okay.
it's because they haven't had a whole history to compare that to. Having been around the sun 71 times, I've been through a few recessions and inflationary periods, and there was a lot of grumbling recently about inflation here in the United States. Well, I can remember in the 70s when it was 18%. So,
Wow.
3 to 6% historically isn't that
That's a
great. And it's all relative. It all depends on your point of reference. I
yeah.
didn't discover this till I was in my 40s, but my um, grandfather was abducted by the Russians at the end of or beginning of World War One, served captive for a decade, feeding troops, and had this wild journey up through Persia or Russia, down through Persia, and back to Poland after the war,
Wow.
and tried to start a young family. The economy and everything was so devastated that they threw in the towel, packed all their belongings in 3 trunks, and immigrated to Canada. They landed at Halifax. They sent you wherever there was work. That was out in the middle of Manitoba, outside Winnipeg, in a small town called Pine Falls. They were building a paper mill on the Winnipeg River, and that's where there was employment and work. So when you think of that ordeal, survived World War One, being captive, the
Oof.
Great Depression, the Spanish flu, World War
Yeah,
Two,
there was a
World
lot
War
there.
Two, all the calamities of the first 50 years of the 20th century.
Yeah,
Grumbling about waiting 15 more minutes for my pizza, or um, angst because there's not an instant response to my text messages
yeah,
aren't
it's so true.
aren't major problems.
We're not in the
Right,
same world
right.
anymore.
Yeah. So it's helpful to know what past generations dealt with. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, we must be grateful for that actually.
right. Especially when I have
um,
choices of maybe 20 pizza joints within a 5 mile radius of me, and the exhaustive menus that they all have. Because when I
yeah.
grew up, when I was maybe in eighth grade, there was like four types of cereal on the shelf in the grocery store. You had cornflakes, Rice Krispies, puff rice,
Wow, it's not the same
puff
now.
wheat, and that was it. Oh no, there was five. There was Frosted Flakes. So, given all the luxuries and choices we have today, and
Yeah,
especially compared to other people around the planet, there's a lot of things that we get upset about or stress about really aren't that important.
yeah, that's so true. That's a good perspective right now for the teenager actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. In conclusion, three last questions. Um, at the end of your journey, what do you want to leave to this world?
Well, I hope to leave some influence or change in people's lives. It's one of the reasons why I've continued to study, teach, and practice yoga, meditation, and mindfulness, because those have had dramatic um, impact on people's lives. The ability to stay balanced and redirect their life energy toward ways that serve them rather than deplete them. And hopefully, maybe made some technological contributions that serve
Hmm,
people.
interesting. I love it. And do you have a person that inspired you in your journey, and would you have a message for that person?
Well, the message is thank you. that it's tough to put the level of gratitude up into words, but there's been quite a few people that have um, been influences in my life, but one of the greatest ones was my first yoga teacher, and
Okay.
I took the class just on a whim. A roommate at the time, we were both into everything athletic. I played soccer and bike ride and scuba dived and all kinds of
Oh, nice.
activities. And he said, "Hey, there's this yoga class at the Y. You want to check it out?" I thought it was another form of exercise. Dead wrong. And I was hooked the first class because I didn't realize how much stress I was carrying around on an unconscious basis until there was that shift. And that was so dramatic that after one class, I studied for as a student for 3 years, had an
Wow.
opportunity to actually go to workshops as one of the first yogis that came to the West, Amrit Desai. And for whatever reason, he had a fondness for Dayton, Ohio, for coming multiple times a year, doing weekend workshops. And from there, I got my teacher's training and then was teaching as a side hustle in parallel to my rich tech career. And that first yoga teacher was one of the most peaceful, grounded people I've ever met in my
Yeah.
life. And she had this quiet, soft voice, and she said, "Yoga changes you." And that was a huge understatement. It will transform you if you stay with the practice and the discipline. Because none of us popped in with a user's manual for this or this.
Yeah.
And we have a tremendous amount of potential when we know how to uh, control our states to be going through life in complete joy, exuberance, and bliss. We don't have all this life energy that is spent on our reactions and stresses to life, and that can be channeled to ways that will serve you, that um, just open up whole new worlds.
Wow, I love it. Wow, you're it's so true. Thank you for that. And
Because one of the yogis I still study from and that I admire is the same age. He manages 8 million volunteers worldwide, 300,
wow,
300 centers around the planet, reforestation, save soil programs, and um, health, nutrition, and education programs throughout India and the
wow,
world, is a maniac on a motorcycle, races Formula One race cars, hikes the Himalayas sometimes 2 weeks a month at a time by himself solo, and the list goes on. And he does that on 2 to 4 hours of sleep a day. And most people will say, well, how is that humanly possible? Well, it's possible because he doesn't waste 1 ounce of his life energy in stress in
wow.
ways that doesn't serve him. And when you go through life in a restful state, you don't require as much sleep.
Yeah, I think it's most about controlling your energy than your time.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow, this is awesome, actually.
Yeah.
This is
Because energy and
amazing.
focus, controlling your energy and focus, actually, the time will fall in place.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because these days, hasn't been always the case, but these days, the minute my feet hit the floor, there's not anything in my day that isn't congruent with those core values that I mentioned: to learn, to teach, to create, to problem solve, and to serve.
that's
And
a
that
good
eliminates a
advice.
tremendous amount of other stuff.
Yeah, of course.
And
uh,
when my
yeah,
feet hit the floor, they hit it with gratitude, grateful that I get to evolve, I get to um, explore and experience life where
that,
that takes me.
that's so important.
Yeah. Because a hundred
um,
thousand people overnight don't get that opportunity; they pass
yeah,
away.
exactly. That's so important. Last question. Why did you agree to participate in that discussion with me today?
Well, I always like to connect with like minds, and I, having run my own podcast, I like to benefit people in their journey and their exploration, and I like the mission that you have to support young people. Especially since I didn't have a lot of those opportunities in my early youth.
Yeah,
Had there
same.
been mentors and people that a lot of the hurdles that I have to had to face rather would have been a little easier to navigate and probably less
So true. Yeah.
painful. Yeah.
So thank you so much. Thank you for that time. I really appreciate you took that time for me today and for everybody. And I'm sure that there's a lot of things that you said that would help a teenager.
Well, thank you for having me on your show.
That's a pleasure, my friend, and I hope we're gonna talk sooner about anything you want. I'm there for you.
Reach out anytime.
Yeah, exactly right. So thank you so much, and as I always say, let's go.
Yep.
Thank you.